Hi, my name is Hafeez and I am a powerlifter. Okay, so it was way back in 2012 that I started kind of exploring the world of strength training. I had just gotten out of the army and I was keen to just start going to the gym and just being a better version of myself. I had just gotten out of a bad breakup, so I think there's a lot of people who get into strength training that have like a similar history behind it, where like you kind of you have low self-confidence and you think like the gym is going to help you with that. So that's where I was. That was a moment in my life. So 2013, I started going to a lot of like those community gyms, and I think it was only a couple of months later after that we kind of settled down in the gym nation here at Fengshan CC. I kind of got to know about it through my secondary school friend Hidayat. He was into that whole kind of strength training circuit, and he had a background in sports education as well. So he kind of brought me into that world and introduced me to the world of powerlifting. What kind of made me gravitate towards the sport was the fact that it was so easy to kind of break into for someone who had no athletic background like me. I had no sporting background. I have two left feet. I can't play football for shit. I can't throw something accurately. So naturally, this was a sport that kind of piqued my interest. And over time, I found out that it actually made me more confident in myself, because this was something that I could be good at. I wouldn't say excel, but I could be good at. Versus like other sports where you are competing with people who are naturally more gifted than you. Yeah, I guess that's what kind of made me gravitate towards powerlifting. I guess in the early days, before we actually found a gym that was conducive to powerlifting training, we had to kind of bounce around a lot of different gyms. And these gyms were more catered to like the average gym goer, with like lots of machines, but not really many free weight racks, free weights, platforms to deadlift and do a lot of heavy shit in. So yeah, that was kind of a struggle to kind of find where these gyms were. And we're talking about the early 2010s, where advertising on Google wasn't a big thing. You had to like really go out and find, like to really research. You had to rely on word of mouth to see where people were going, where the people in the scene were training at. And it's through this we found a lot of good gyms like Solidity of Strength, which wasn't really a powerlifting centric gym, but they had enough equipment, enough facilities to sort of help support the kind of sport that we were trying to get into. I guess once you get into something like powerlifting, you also kind of want to have an arena where you want to test yourself and test yourself against other people as well. And at that point, there weren't really many places to do that. There weren't many competitions. The first one that was really established, I don't think a lot of people remember this, was the Singapore Strength Classic back in 2013. That was the kind of stepping off point for powerlifting. And it wasn't even a powerlifting centric competition. It was actually a weightlifting / kettlebell, if I'm not wrong, / powerlifting competition. So 3 sports together in one event. Those of you who kind of only grew up knowing powerlifting competitions, I don't know if you actually understand what a mess that could have been. But thankfully, it was executed as well as it could have at that point. It was held at Toa Payoh Stadium. The turnout wasn't really that great, I think, because the sport itself wasn't really, there wasn't much hype around the sport. And it's only people who were in the scene who kind of attended it and who were already in that strength training circuit who knew about events like this that really turned up. But it was great because the people that we met in these competitions, they kind of carried on, and we kept seeing them in a lot of these events moving forward, and we kind of built relationships and friendships through those events along the way. So I guess that's one of the good things about competitions like this, that you get to build relationships. I would say when powerlifting became less of a competitive thing for me was, I think, towards the tail end of 2015 when I took part in a competition, I think in KL. It was the push-pull competition that was held by one of our friends over there, Muaz. Actually, I don't know if he organized it, but he kind of invited us to come and take part. But yeah, after that, it was when I kind of realized that apart from kind of testing your training and your program thus far, a competition doesn't really do much for me personally. I'm not a naturally competitive person by nature. I kind of only, it's something I tell myself a lot, like I only compete against myself. I only want to be a better version of myself than I was the day before. So I don't need a competition to do that. I can just do it every time I go in the gym. So personally, to me, I don't see a point in taking part in competitions like that at that point. And I still don't. But no shade to those who do. I'm sure you guys have your own motivations for taking part in those competitions. But yeah, personally, I don't see any kind of benefit, tangible or otherwise, in terms of competing in a sport like powerlifting. Looking back from when I first started this journey back in 2013, 2012, I realized that getting into strength training and the sport of powerlifting was probably the best decision I could have made for myself at that point. I think that it was sort of a turning point for me in terms of my personal growth, because before it, I was kind of like this kid fresh out of the army. I had a low opinion of myself, very low self-esteem. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't know how to get myself out of that funk. But doing strength training, doing powerlifting gave me a sense of direction, because every time I go into the gym, I know what I want to do, I know how I'm going to achieve it, and that kind of helped me develop this kind of ethos, not just in the gym but also in my everyday life as well. Because let's face it, every time you train, not every session is going to be the best session. Not every session is going to go the way you think it's going to go. Sometimes you fail a set, sometimes you fail a rep, and that's okay. It's the same thing for like how you tackle problems in life. Sometimes you're not going to get a promotion that you want. Sometimes you're not going to solve the problems that you want to solve. It's how you kind of approach that failure, and how you sort of reframe it into not just where you fell short, but also an opportunity for you to improve, for you to find ways to be better. That's how I see my training. That's how I view my training. That's how I tend to view everything else in life as well. So I'm glad that I kind of got into this sport, because there is no way that I could have developed this kind of principle, I guess, life principle, without going through this. So right now we are here at Fengshan CC in the heart of Bedok North. This is the first kind of location where we held our first sanctioned meet for powerlifting, and this was kind of the jumping off point for a lot of powerlifters in Singapore, because they finally had a platform to kind of compete in the sport of powerlifting. If I remember correctly, it was kind of a really humble event. There was not a lot of hype, there's not a lot of fanfare around it. It was just like a platform with event banners, event backdrop, if I'm not wrong. Even the chairs were just like the kind of plastic chairs that you find in a kopitiam. Still, we kind of had a lot of fun. The warm-up area was in the gym nation behind, like before it was Subway, it was the gym. And it wasn't a very big area, mind you. There were only like, I think, 2 if not 3 racks for people to warm up in, alongside some small machines. And if there was no other space, you're out of luck. You know, you kind of had to wait your turn. But the good part was that at the end of the event, like a lot of powerlifting competitions, we had pizza, because beside the gym, at the corner there, was a Canadian pizza. And we had that for dinner after all the hard work was done. So that was great. I think like it's one of the memories I will kind of cherish quite fondly, because I formed a lot of friendships during that time. I met a lot of people who are giants in their sport, who continue to be extremely experienced and knowledgeable lifters. It's great that it took off from here, because people finally knew what the sport of powerlifting was and could be. So I hope people kind of remember what happened here, because it was kind of a pivotal moment for us as powerlifters. The Gym Nation was a primarily strength training gym that was situated here in Fengshan CC, right in the center here. It was a gym where a lot of both strength enthusiasts and powerlifters came to train. I'm not sure why it became like the place for powerlifters to come. Like in part, it had to be due to the fact that they also contributed a lot to the powerlifting scene in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower, in terms of organizing the event itself. So they were a really central figure in the powerlifting scene as a gym. The owners, Tony and Terry, I knew them. I also worked for them part-time previously. They were quite central figures in the powerlifting scene, and almost everybody kind of knew who they were when they showed up. So they were really part of a positive contribution to the powerlifting scene, I would say. I mean, on a personal level, I don't think anything can compete with what we had when we were in the Gym Nation. But there are a few places that kind of come close as well, in terms of like the whole vibe and the whole support in terms of encouraging strength training and powerlifting as a whole. Places like Arc Block, places like the Strength Yard. These are places that not only contribute to the sport of powerlifting in general, but also have the facilities, have the equipment to actually contribute positively to your training if you wish to pursue powerlifting. I mean, I wouldn't say it's exclusive to those places, but these are kind of places that come close, because they have that kind of individual identities within themselves. So kind of looking back at the scene when it was kind of at its peak back in the early 2010s, like the situation was more of like, hey, we all love the sport of powerlifting. We just want to come together and look at people lift heavy shit. I think that was like a huge high for us when we saw it. Even though the events were like competitions in name, I feel like personally they were more of opportunities for each of us individually to kind of improve on ourselves, and that competing against another person was kind of secondary, because I think partly in due to the fact that there were no real stakes involved apart from bragging rights and like medals. Now that the sport of powerlifting has kind of developed a bit more, there's more international affiliations. You can kind of see like a bit of paradigm shift in terms of the mentality within the people in the sport right now. It's become like a lot more competitive than what it was before. There are a lot more, I would say, in my opinion, there are a lot more walls being built up among like kind of groups of lifters who have like affiliations with one another and stuff like that. To be honest, I think that's kind of natural. That's human nature to want to only affiliate yourselves with people you know and you trust. But comparing it to what it was before, I think it was a bit more welcoming, a bit more conducive to beginners in the sport, and a bit less kind of competitive lah. I think the competition has kind of got in the way of the fact that this can be a sport that anyone can get into. Anyone can kind of work up to when you want to be in the sport. Like, all it takes is just effort and time, and I think that's what I love about it. It doesn't matter who you are, how you're built, where you come from. You can, as long as you have a goal in mind, you can work towards it, you can achieve it with the right program and the right training. So my top 5 powerlifters of all time, I think number 1, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Yat. He's known as the technician for a reason, and he executes very well. He was my kind of mentor when I first started out, and he continues to be an inspiration not just to me but to everyone else in the sporting circuit as well. So it's gotta be my number 1. Number 2, I would say hard lah. But I think you can all agree that Nas has got to be on that list because I think he was the first guy who impressed all of us with lifts executed in a way that we could not have anticipated before. He squatted with a narrow stance, he squatted with a high bar, and he squatted the heaviest out of almost everyone in the competition at the time. And that was insane because everyone was going sumo, everyone was going wide stance, everyone was going low bar, and here you have a guy who's like looked like a freaking piece of beef just standing there and just like executing a high bar squat like it was nothing, like it was a daily squat. Number 3 gotta be my boy Yasin Raya. I think you embody the kind of technicality that is missing from a lot of lifters these days. Like, people kind of forget that it's not just a balls out sport. There's a lot of technique involved when it comes to knowing your body and knowing how to take advantage of your physicality to bring out the best in powerlifting. So I think you kind of bring that out. My number 4 would be, I guess, Derek Kim. I don't know how he's doing these days, but back when I knew him, he was kind of training here as well. Fully working a job, fully with responsibilities with a family and stuff, and still smashing it in the gym and on the platform, and like literally crushing the competition, and that was kind of like insane. And my number 5 would be my man Zen. He also trained at the Gym Nation, and he was known for putting up big bench numbers, especially for a guy with his physique. He's a really tall guy, quite lanky, but he could still execute a bench like technically sound and flawless. So not many people could kind of attention to a single lift like he did. And every time I saw him in the gym, I was always impressed by how he could execute it with his build. Yeah, those are my top 5 picks of all time. Okay, so IPF or GPA meets. Having kind of experienced both sides, I'm leaning towards GPA meets because it appeals to my nature. I'm a bit more laid back, so I'm not really a stickler for rules. So GPA meets kind of lend that kind of laid back nature where it's a bit looser, but the spirit of competition still remains the same. As long as the rules don't detract from the experience and the competition, like, I'm fine with it. It just feels like IPF has grown to be a bit more regimented in the past few years. So no shade to those who kind of prefer IPF meets. That's your prerogative. But if I had a choice, I would kind of go towards GPA lah. If I had one piece of advice for someone who's thinking of getting into the sport, I would say that don't be afraid of the bar, the gym, or the people in the gym. You came in the gym to get out of your comfort zone. Embrace the process, basically. If you're unsure, if you think someone is doing something right and you want to kind of learn from them, approach them, ask them, chances are they'll be more than happy to kind of bring you through the thought process. If you need a spot, don't be afraid to ask, don't be shy. Respect gym rules, of course. Not every gym is the same. And keep your damn weights. Don't leave them lying about, and respect other gym goers as well.
Aku will keep rolling. I will just shake your hand. Thanks for everything. It's been a pleasure. Tu botak man. He's more botak than me today. I never shaved my head. Thanks, Luis.
No problem, man.
Wow, that's quite good. Quite good.